Good morning. At the school I work in, we share our office space with the RE department. And about 2 years ago, after what I think was probably a particularly difficult lesson, one of the RE teachers came into the office space and said, "The kids just don't know the stories of Jesus anymore." And she was clearly frustrated. And another colleague turned to her and said, "Why does that matter?" And I was somewhat flabbergasted by that question. Of course Jesus mattered. Of course it mattered that they didn't know the stories of Jesus. It mattered because, and I opened my mouth to answer her question, and I found I didn't know what to say. I knew Jesus mattered and does matter massively in my life, but I couldn't articulate why for someone who had no interest in or history of church going. So today's talk is a little bit like waking up at 2 a.m. and thinking of the thing that you wish that you had said, as I try to answer that question. Why does Jesus matter? Why does the cross matter? Not just to us as Christians, but to everyone, everywhere. And I've got two very simple answers to each of those questions. So, to start with the first question, if the clicker works, there it is. Why does Jesus matter? This is the answer that I've come up with. Jesus matters because goodness has to look like something. Lots of people would say that they don't need God or they don't need religion because they're a good person, they're living a good life. And to that I would say, well, great, but what does it mean to live a good life? And what if your version of goodness is different from mine? What happens then? The passage says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. Jesus is the image of goodness. Jesus is the image of God. Jesus is the standard by which we judge what a good human life looks like. It doesn't get better than Jesus. So, when we're faced with the stuff of life, Jesus matters because he shows us how to respond. The stories of Jesus in the Gospels show us again and again, this is how to live. This is how to do life. Jesus matters because he is the image of the invisible God. He is what goodness looks like, and we need to know that. The second answer I came up with to the question, why does Jesus matter, is, again, is it going to work? There it is. Because he proves to us that we are not alone. And that's a message that we need reminding of now more than ever, after months of lockdown and isolation and social distancing and not being able to hug the people we love best in this world. You are not alone. God promises throughout the Bible again and again, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Jesus is the God who left the glory of heaven to enter into the ignominy and the muck of birth in the stable. He is the God who comes to find us. As the shepherd leaves the 99 sheep to go off in search of the one who is missing, so Jesus is searching for you. People often say, "Oh, I found Jesus," or "they found Jesus." But I've always thought that that was the wrong way round. I became a Christian when I was 18, but I didn't find Jesus. I certainly wasn't looking for Jesus. Jesus came a similar story. God found him. It wasn't the other way around. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus shows up in people's lives time and time again. When they're grieving, when they're lonely, when they're hungry, when they're depressed, when they're outcast, when their fishing business isn't going too well, Jesus shows up. Throw the net on the other side. And he shows up in our lives. He's here now, calling to you, whether it feels like it or not. My child, surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Jesus matters because he is proof that we never need to be alone again. It's good news now more than ever. So, why does the cross matter? My colleague didn't ask that question, but I'm going to imagine that she did, because I've come up with some answers for this too. But how could an outdated form of Roman torture from 2,000 years ago possibly have any relevance to us here now in 2021? Well, if the life of Jesus shows us the best way to live, then the death of Jesus shows us that death is a part of that life. If we are to have the fullness of life that Jesus talks about in John 10, then death is an unavoidable part of that. People often ask, don't they, did Jesus really need to die? And I don't know the answer to that question. You can ask Will if you want to know. But I'm tempted to say, I don't think he did. But I think that we do. We need to take up our cross and follow him. Dying to yourself is hard. It's painful and it's uncomfortable. And those of you who are watching who are parents will know exactly what I mean. When you're getting up again for the 457th night in a row because your baby hasn't learnt how to sleep through the night yet, it's painful. When you've been pooed on in public again, when your house is a tip and you've lost control of everything that you once prided yourself on, and you're on your knees, you learn this is what love looks like. This is what it means to be confronted with your own selfishness and your sinfulness and your shortcomings and your lack of love and grace and compassion and care, and to die to all that ugliness so that you can be born as the parent that your child needs. Because on the other side of death, there is life. The cross matters because, to quote the Message version of our verses from Colossians, all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, people and things, animals and atoms, get properly fixed and fit together in his death on the cross. And finally, why does the cross matter? Because it proves to us how much he loves us. Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend. I once read a Christian book where a man was walking along a beach and he asked God for a sign of his love for him personally. And he looked out to sea and he saw a whale breaking the water. He saw the huge tail go up. He saw the fountain thing coming out of the whale's head, and he knew in his heart that this mighty creature was a sign from God that he loved him. And not to be outdone, his wife, who heard this story, walked along the same beach. They must have been on holiday or something. And she prayed the same prayer. God, give me a sign that you love me. And she looked out for her whale, and no whale came, but she found a starfish on the sand. And she said it was beautiful and it was intricate, and she knew that was God's symbol of his love for her. And I read this, and I immediately prayed the same prayer. God, give me a sign of your love for me. I know you love everybody, God. Show me you love me. And then I looked out of the window for my whale or my starfish. It's a bit hard to find in inner city Sheffield. And I kept looking for my sign. And I prayed that prayer on and off for years. God, show me that you love me. And I waited. Why wasn't God answering my prayer? Why wasn't God hearing what I was saying to him? Didn't he love me? And then it dawned on me one day that God had heard my prayer the very first time I had prayed it. He wasn't answering me, not because he was indifferent to me or because he didn't care. He wasn't answering me because he couldn't answer me, because he'd already answered me. There is no greater symbol of God's immeasurable love for us than Jesus hanging broken and bleeding on that cross for me. Nothing says I love you better than the death of an innocent and blameless man in my place. God wasn't holding out on me. He'd already played his trump card. He'd already given the ultimate symbol of his love in Jesus on the cross. And he didn't have anything else to give. No whale, no starfish can come close to Jesus on the cross. He wasn't holding anything back. He'd already left it out on the field. And I just had to take him at his word. The cross is the ultimate symbol of God's love for us, the ultimate sign of what the Jesus Storybook Bible calls the never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love of God. You, my friend, are loved, and so am I. Romans 8 says that he who did not spare his own son but gave him up for us, how will he not also graciously give us all things? So there you have it. Jesus matters because he shows us what goodness looks like, and we need to know. Jesus matters because his life proves that we are not alone. And we need to hear that now more than ever. The cross matters because it teaches us that on the other side of death, there is life. And we need to take up our cross and follow him. And the cross matters because it says you are loved better than anything else ever could. And we need to live in light of that. And I, for one, need this in my life. Thank you.